a lot of times what happens in botulism is our bodies literally go into fight or flight because the toxin can block nerve signaling in the autonomic nervous system. And part of that is like we have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, right? And the parasympathetic calms us down. And that's the part of the nervous system that gets all haywire. So we kind of like look like a tiger's running after us, like we start just having a ton of anxiety and panic.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync. Today, I have a very special guest who I am so excited to chat with, Megan McHugh. Megan is a CCC-SLP and is a California-based medical speech-language pathologist who specializes in treating speech and swallowing disorders. And she developed botulism symptoms from just 12 units of Xeomin. I asked her how to pronounce Xeomin, right? That's how we...
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, once, which is Botox. So we're having a conversation about Botox today. And she became really passionate about educating the public about the real, oftentimes underreported risks of botulinum toxin injectors. So before we dive in, today is just, as always with this podcast, if you're a new listener or if you've been listening, we are all about informed consent. And Megan and I were just talking about this. Like, we are by no way, like, we're going to talk about the negative side effects of Botox, just like I talk a lot about the negative side effects of birth control, both of which are not discussed. We see a lot of there's especially, I'm 34 and I told Megan, I was like, I have taken Botox before, done Botox before, because when I entered my late 20s, I want to say, that's when I started seeing wrinkles you hadn't seen before and, just natural aging. And that was just kind of what a lot of my friends were doing. And I was like, oh, they're it's expensive, but I didn't know anything else negative about it. And then I actually found Megan on a colleague of mine's podcast, Dr. Caleb Borchers. And right before I was contemplating getting some more Botox, I listened to that podcast and I was like, hell no, never again. And the stuff that Megan talked about just really stuck with me. And all that being said, this isn't to shame anyone who's done Botox before, and we're going to be talking about the negative, oftentimes not discussed and underreported risks of getting Botox done. And then we're also going to talk about some other natural ways to support aging and aging gracefully. And also, I think just bringing in some of the societal pressures that, especially as women, we feel to never age and look a certain way. So all that being said, Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Taylor. I'm so glad to be here. I'm glad you heard my show with Kayla.
Yes.
It's amazing.
So let's just start from the beginning. Let's hear your story and your experience with what you went through when you got your only one round of Botox. And then I know I'm going to have questions after that.
I know, I'm the unlucky one. Well, I, just like you, was starting to head I was actually 34 when I tried Botox for the first time. So this was 2 years ago. And, everyone was doing it. A couple of my friends, my sister, I found out had been doing it for 6 years and hadn't told me. And I was like, wait a minute, we're all doing this now? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I got to make my appointment. But I had recently started doing microneedling facials with this doctor, an MD. So she did Botox, she administered it, did it on herself, very reputable, 10 years plus experience. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to try a tiny amount right here in my crow's feet. I'm going to go to this doctor who I've trusted and known for 2 years. She was a very sweet woman, gorgeous skin, didn't have a single wrinkle. And so I really, really trusted her, and I was getting the smallest amount. And even though I was like, I should look into the side effects because I'm, the crunchy California mom that reads all the labels, I did look into the side effects, and everything online was like, no, super safe. Oh my gosh, if you're getting it cosmetically, there's no risk of botulism symptoms at all, because this is the toxin that can cause botulism, right? It's called botulinum toxin. And so everything online assured me, of course you're safe, small amount, experienced, reputable doctor, legitimate product. I'm not using product off of the internet like some people are doing these days, crazy enough. So I go in that day. I got 6 units on either side. I got a total of 12 units. And right away, sitting there in the chair, left side, she injects me, feel fine. Right side, it hurt. And I was like, oh, that felt weird. And then as I was sitting like back in the chair, like the room was kind of spinning. My head started to hurt. Like I couldn't concentrate on anything. And I said to her, I feel weird. My brain feels weird. I actually said that out loud. And she was like, I think she thought I was having a vasovagal response. So she was like, okay, like you could tell she didn't hear that a lot. So my doctor wanted to, observe me. I think she thought maybe I was having a vasovagal response. And she kind of looked at me. You could tell she didn't hear that a lot. And I said, I feel fine. My brain feels really strange, and things started to kind of just feel very off. But I left, I wasn't having an allergic reaction. So I left the office. I was supposed to go into work that day, tons of head pressure, headache, like difficulty concentrating while I'm driving. And I was just like, what is happening? I was like, maybe this is just normal, or like what you're supposed to feel when you get anything injected near your eyes. I didn't know any better. It was my first time. I couldn't go to work. Like I tried seeing one patient. I'm a speech pathologist for a local hospital system, but I actually see the patients in their homes after they come home from like having a stroke. So I tried to see one patient, just started feeling like heart palpitations and like a really weird like fight or flight response. So I go home and my mom's there watching my baby, and I was like, I feel so awful. I feel so weird. I'm getting dizzy, nauseous. Like all of these symptoms just start kind of piling on. And I called the doctor back. I said, I feel like I have COVID. Like what's happening? Like I couldn't get off the couch. I was so fatigued and brain foggy. And she was like, no. Like you're super anxious. Go drink some tea. So in the ensuing days and weeks, I started developing more and more symptoms. A lot of times what happens in botulism is our bodies literally go into fight or flight because the toxin can block nerve signaling in the autonomic nervous system. And part of that is like we have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, right? And the parasympathetic calms us down. And that's the part of the nervous system that gets all haywire. So we kind of like look like a tiger's running after us, like we start just having a ton of anxiety and panic. And so at the time I'm thinking like, what happened? Because I've never experienced anxiety like this. I was having, I started losing hair in the shower, and I was like, like noticeably, we all lose hair in the shower, but we kind of notice when it's more than usual. Within about 5 to 6 weeks, my mouth had gone completely dry. My saliva production was like nothing, to the point where I stopped being able to eat solid foods because they just wouldn't go down. They'd all get like stuck or just feel like they were just stuck in my throat for hours. Like I would try to clear my throat and nothing. I had no appetite whatsoever. I was in a constant state of fight or flight. I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia. I mean, it was just like symptom after symptom after symptom piling on top of each other. And for the first 6 weeks, I had no idea what was happening. I knew everything had started after the Botox, but I didn't know why. Because when you search online, it just says like, oh, if you're having trouble breathing or if you're paralyzed, go to the ER, right? But that wasn't exactly what I had. And the reason for that is because what I went on to learn later is when only a small amount of toxin spreads, like, right, I only had those 6 units. When only a small amount of toxin spreads, you're not going to get the full on like severe descending paralysis, muscle weakness, respiratory failure that you would see in like a severe botulism case, like someone who ate a bunch of food that was tainted with botulinum toxin, right? A lot of us are getting what's called mild botulism. So it's dizziness, anxiety, blurry vision, a little bit of muscle weakness. Like my neck was really weak. So I'd have to like kind of hold my head up sometimes because it would just go, difficulty swallowing. I did have a couple weeks of difficulty breathing where it felt like really lazy and really hard to get a good breath in. And then I also ended up with something, basically my ear nerves were damaged and I like couldn't pop my ears for 9 months. Taylor, I went crazy. Like they were full for 9 months. So finally around like week 6 or 7, I'm like, Megan, buck up and go Google Botox side effects. Like, you have to look into this because you know intuitively what's going on. But I was so terrified that I had botulism that because I thought I was going to die if I had botulism. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. So I finally, after like 6 ER visits, like my primary care doctor being like, huh, what's wrong with you? Going in for a swallow test, an x-ray swallow test, and seeing on the screen that my esophagus wasn't working properly. Like, I finally went home and was like, okay, I have to look into this. I find an entire support group of like tens of thousands of people who literally have the exact same story as me. After Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, all these different botulinum toxin injections, like dizziness, nausea, brain fog, fatigue, difficulty swallowing, difficulty breathing, like all of us have kind of the same core set of symptoms. All of us, I'd say 99% of us, our injectors just told us like, no, silly girl, like you're anxious. Like none of this is real. It's all in your head. And one of the reasons they get away with that to this day is because botulism symptoms occur in the nervous system and you actually can't see them on objective testing. So we're like all running to the ER and the ER is saying like, well, your oxygen looks good. Your heart looks good. Your chest x-ray looks good, whatever. Like you must be fine. And sadly in medicine, there is not a lot of education about botulism and especially more mild cases. So doctors don't even realize that all of these nervous system symptoms can occur without there being objective tests to confirm it and more objective markers of illness. So yeah, that's kind of, I can keep going, but I'll pause for questions because I can talk all day about this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think one thing I'll say too is like, I'm just, as you're talking, like so many parallels to women I work with who are dealing with symptoms and told just like, oh, like it's in your head, like painful periods that end up being like endometriosis or anxiety. And they're like, oh, just, let's switch to birth control or that's like go back on birth control. Like just so much dismissal of like, it's just in your head when it's like really something is wrong. Like it's just, it's so frustrating that you were dealing with that for so long and it was just not acknowledged and just kept getting worse and worse.
Right. And when you're the one living in that body, it's terrifying because imagine having difficulty swallowing and feeling like you're going to choke when you swallow. I lost 20 pounds in 1 month. I couldn't eat
I'm sure.
solid food at all. And you're looking at, like, I would go to the ER, I'd bring in resources. Like I was literally printing out like the product insert and articles from the medical literature about iatrogenic botulism. That's what they call it, iatrogenic, meaning caused by the medication. And they finally took me serious about the 6th visit and said, okay, we're going to note this in your chart. Like, you're right. These symptoms are on the product insert as possible side effects. And I'm looking at them like, I've lost 20 pounds. I don't know like what's going to happen. There's like no prognosis available to me. No one knows what's happening to me or can help me like figure out what to do about it. And oftentimes that's why women end up in these support groups is because we're not getting answers from our doctors or the ER or neurologists. Oh my gosh, neurologists are the biggest dealers of Botox out there after dermatologists, right? Because they're using this drug for things like migraines and nerve pain and all these different, tremors. They use it for muscle spasms and tremors. So neurologists look at us like we're crazy. Like, what do you mean this can't happen? Meanwhile, there's a 4-page warning on the Botox product insert stating that, yes, this can happen and it does happen. And we know that because, the FDA receives thousands of reports of these botulism symptoms every single year. And the government also tells us like, hey, by the way, these reporting systems are severely underreported. Most people, they think they've gone crazy. Maybe they go home. They're told by 10 doctors they're crazy. They're not going to report their symptoms. They don't even tie it back to the Botox, How many women are walking around there with anxiety, insomnia, hair loss? Hair loss is a huge one these days. I was telling you earlier that I have an extensions appointment because I literally lost 60 to 70% of my hair. And when I told my extensions lady what happened to me, of course, she's got the smooth forehead, right? And she goes, well, I didn't lose my hair from Botox. I lost it from anesthesia I had 10 years ago. I was like, 10 years ago? anesthesia? Like, no, that's not how people lose their hair for 10 years. I mean, she has about the same amount of hair I do. And and it looks the same. Like it also changed in texture. It got really dry. And I told her, I said, no, this is actually on the product insert, alopecia, on the Botox product insert. And she's like, well, all of my clients use Botox. And I'm like, all of her extensions clients. And I'm like, I know, I could have told you that because there's a huge hair loss epidemic right now. And I'd be willing to bet about 50% of it is coming straight from Botox. Obviously, there's other things too, other medications, GLP-1s that everyone's using, right? Like a lot of toxic medications can cause hair loss and even viruses and illnesses like COVID. But if you're only, if you're using Botox and you're losing or have lost severe amounts of hair, look into the Botox. That's all I'm saying. Because I didn't lose a single strand of hair till I had those 12 units.
Yes. And I, similar with birth control, I talk about that all the, like hair loss is a big thing with birth control. That would be a medication that I put in there because of how it impacts your gut and your absorption and also nutrient depletion. And so many women are struggling with that after coming off birth control or after being on it for so many years. And the same thing with anxiety. That was the thing that stood out to me the most, that I was like, hell no, I'm never getting Botox again. Like, I do not care if it makes my forehead smoother or whatever because of the anxiety piece. Because I was like, I am already a more anxiety prone person. I've dealt with pretty severe anxiety, especially when I came off birth control, and I finally have it under wraps for the most part. It's still still something we all work on. But I was like, if this is something that makes you more anxious just by its nature, I'm like, no wonder so many women, that combined with like many of us being on birth control, like at a young age, like which is clinically shown to increase rates of anxiety, depression, suicide even, like no wonder so many of us are like walking around with anxiety. And also, it's just so sad that it's just like, so like, oh, it's in your head, like,
Well, yeah, they all get SSRIs then. It's like the drugs on top of the drugs. And, the anxiety in botulism is truly unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was like a physical anxiety, like almost like an internal buzzing, like you can't get your body to calm down. And I'm like yoga girl extraordinaire. And I will say that it took about 18 months for the feelings of anxiety to finally subside. And I'm like, I would never risk it again because I love being in a body that's not anxious. Like, I think you agree with me. It's just like, oh, I love that I can just sit here now and be calm and not have like racing thoughts, impending doom, heart palpitations, that I had so most of my symptoms lasted about 6 months, the intense ones. The ear nerve lasted longer and I still don't have my normal ears. So my eustachian tube is very dysfunctional. It'll open too much, then it'll close too much in like weird social situations. So I constantly have to like open my eustachian tube. And I ended up developing TMJ pain from that because I was always moving my jaw in weird ways. But for the most part, everything else has remediated. But I really want to stress this to your audience that I was so lucky and I think that's because I only got those 12 units. So I now run a support group for women and men that this has happened to. I host a podcast where I interview people about their stories. And I can tell you that I healed pretty much like in the top 5% of people that heal really fast. I would say like 5% of people healed as fast as I did. Let's put it that way.
Which
so
still
95% of people, 95% of people who go through this take 2 to 3 years. And we're talking about people losing their jobs, losing their partners because of the stress, not having the same relationship with their children, like the domino effects of this illness. And this is something new since I've been on Kayla's show. Like, I'm divorced now. And I'm not blaming Botox for that, but Botox was the straw that broke the camel's back in a lot of ways. Because it was the ultimate stressor, right? I could not work. I could not care for my children. I couldn't do anything but be in a couch or, on the couch or in a bed for months. And that does a lot to a family when the mom is out. It's like, when the mom's out, nothing happens, okay? No, my ex he's an excellent father, and he did a really great job of holding down the fort. But, people have to understand that there are also this toxin, and I don't know, maybe we could get more into the science. I won't be too sciencey, but
Yeah. No, my
Basically
audience
what it
loves science. I talk about labs
okay.
and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so the toxin itself, once it gets into the bloodstream, it'll go to the nervous system, and what it does there is it blocks neurotransmitters from being communicated. So it gets into like the space between two nerve cells and blocks the neurotransmitters from being released from one nerve cell to the other. So the one we think about the most when we think about Botox is acetylcholine. That is that the neurotransmitter that like moves our muscles, right? So then we get the paralyzed muscles if that's not being transmitted. But botulinum toxin can block like almost every neurotransmitter. It's not just acetylcholine, it can attack once it gets into the body systemically. So it can and does travel to the brain. We know that can happen in multiple ways, actually, through the bloodstream and brainstem, or through a process called retrograde axonal transport, where the toxin can actually like hop back just along nerve cells. It doesn't even need to get into the bloodstream, and it can head into the central nervous system. This is scary stuff, you guys, because what it means is you could be doing Botox and not have any or have minor systemic effects, not experience difficulty swallowing ever or hair loss ever or whatever, but that toxin could still be getting into your central nervous system and causing things down the road like memory loss, short-term memory loss, dementia. Acetylcholine is the major neurotransmitter for memory. And as is glutamate, GABA, all of these other dopamine, serotonin, the toxin can block all of those. So what we see a lot in the support groups is like people get severe psychiatric symptoms. And this was also documented in the medical literature. There was one neurologist named Dr. Herstova who studied people like us, like that had had these horrific reactions. And she noted that the psychiatric symptoms were almost more debilitating than the physical symptoms because a lot of people develop anxiety, severe anxiety, depression, hopelessness. And, because there's no doctors that believe us either, right? So it's like trauma on top of trauma because we're trying to
Yeah.
seek help, but no one even believes us. So then you get hopeless and you're like, is this ever going to get better? Am I ever going to get better? And again, most people do, but it literally takes years and it can take so much away from your life. So
Mhm.
much,
Yeah.
jobs, family, all of
Well,
that.
and I was even thinking as like a business owner, like if I'm down for the count, like there goes my business. You
Exactly.
know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm sure a lot of women listening are like ambitious women and, very much like us, where they are like the glue in a lot of relationships and families and stuff like that. And so I can't imagine like even taking a week off. That's hard enough with any job, let alone your own business. And so
Right.
just something for people to think about with that too.
The risks are just too great. And here's the thing, the incidence rate for what happened to me is probably somewhere in the 0.1 to 1% range. So after all, I have literally read every single Google Scholar article on iatrogenic botulism. Like I've been knee deep in this research for the past 2 years because I, as a medical professional, was like, I have to know everything about this. I have to educate my colleagues. I'm the professional people come to when they can't swallow. Which was so ironic, right? I was like, oh, I gotta
Yeah.
cancel.
Yeah.
But lots of life lessons. But, the incidence rate, and it's going to depend on how many units you're getting. So, like people who get medical Botox are at a higher rate. They will oftentimes develop botulism symptoms in like 1 to 20% of cases
Hmm.
because of how much toxin they're getting and where they get it. If they're getting it in the neck for cervical dystonia, like spasms in the neck, the rate of developing difficulty swallowing is 20% with every injection. It's not just
Wow.
like a one-off thing, right? You're risking that 20% every single time you get injected. So what happened to me is probably around 0.1 to 1% of people. And again, many women will experience these symptoms and never put two and two together and just say, oh, it's my hormones. Oh, it's perimenopause. Oh, I'm anxious.
Yep.
And they'll keep going back for more. And I've had so many women on the podcast who were like, I was having symptoms. I didn't put two and two together. And the last one was the bomb that went off.
Mm.
It was like a slow buildup of and then boom, full on botulism.
Yeah.
And we've had people on breathing machines from cosmetic doses, 30 to 40 units of Botox, end up in the ICU on a breathing machine. I know another woman who got masseter Botox. She's like permanently on a peg tube, like has no idea if she'll ever be able to swallow again. It's things like this where we think of Botox as temporary, right? It'll wear off in 3 months. Not the case when it goes systemic. And I mean, even imaging has shown that that's not even really what's happening with the forehead. Like what's happening with the forehead is it actually is permanently damaging what it reaches, but the body is trying to regrow new nerve synapses around it. So it'll regrow those new dendrites to keep communicating. But there is permanent damage every time Botox is done. It's just a matter of where's it going to be? Is it going to stay here? Are you going to be unlucky? I think I was hitting a blood vessel, right? They're not using imaging to inject us. Like no one's putting up an ultrasound or some kind of imaging to ensure that they're not hitting you in a blood vessel. Like that can happen, and it does happen all the time.
Well, and also to your point, you mentioned this at the very beginning, but like just reiterating, like you were going to like a med spa. It sounds like you were going to like a really reputable, like trusted person you've been going to who like knew her stuff, and this still happened. It's not like you were, injecting yourself or going to some like random place in Mexico or any like this is like in the United States, like a reputable med spa situation.
Yeah. And an MD, and I think I was her first like full on systemic reaction patient. I got the sense that she was freaked out after I got sick. She blocked me. She wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't report my symptoms to the FDA. I had to do that myself, and my initial instinct was I had so much anger, right? I'm thinking, and a lot of this had to do with my hair loss, I couldn't work for months. I just felt like this whole thing had rocked my world, turned my life upside down, and she didn't care. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, this is so messed up, but like, there's no accountability. There's no one that's going to come save you if you get these side effects. That's the other thing is there's one treatment for botulism. Guess what? The CDC houses it in their warehouse, and they do not give it out to people like me who just have the more mild. They only give it out in the case of severe botulism. So that would be like full-on body paralysis, respiratory failure. Well, 99.9% of us don't ever get to that place, but we still have very scary symptoms. My girlfriend Stephanie was like 30 something units of Xeomin, and she was a marathon runner prior. She's 3 years out. And if she walks for like 5-10 minutes, like that's a good workout for her now. This woman ran marathons, okay? She got the full body paralysis, muscle weakness from 30 something units, and she's 3 years out, and she is nowhere near 100%. I mean, she's healed from a lot of the other stuff, but the leg weakness was a big one for her. It's so awful.
Yeah.
And again, reputable MD.
Well, and that in of itself, like not being able to do something that you love, like if she loves running, like not being able to do that, like that's going to impact your mental health too. Like, let alone just it impacting your nervous system, like systemically. So
totally. And that's what happens a lot of times, people's lives are completely turned upside down. And there's so much pain and so much trauma that a lot of times people just want to be done with this. Like if they heal, they leave the support groups. They don't want to talk about it. I've talked to people on my podcast who never told a single soul in their real life about what happened to them. Like they didn't tell their friends, they didn't tell their family. And I'm just like, how? Like my instinct was like, I have to tell the world. Like, oh my God. But a lot of women are ashamed. Sadly, which I don't think they should be. Like this stuff has been so normalized, but there's so much trauma that a lot of people just don't speak about it. So I think, so many tens of thousands of people have been affected by this drug. And most of the time once people heal, they just want to move on.
Yeah.
And that's why your audience is probably thinking like, I've never heard of this, or but there is more and more awareness being raised about this. And I'm like, there's a petition out there, a public citizen petition that went out 3 years ago to the FDA. Like, hey, This drug has been causing botulism symptoms even in cosmetic doses. Patients aren't being warned about it. Here's all the evidence. You need to strengthen the warning on these because there already is a black box warning, right? You could die. It literally says that on the product insert. You can die from this product. Heart attack, respiratory failure could kill you. The FDA has not responded to that petition though. Like they just don't care. I don't know what it is. Like they aren't interested in raising more awareness about the downsides of this drug. And I think, the tinfoil hat person in me is like, money, money, money. This is all out of pocket. Like this is a big moneymaker, you guys. Like even for the people getting it through insurance at a neurologist's office, the neurologists are making so much for the amount of work it takes. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
sad.
Same thing with like birth control. It's like, even if it's insurance pays for it, it's big pharma, like, not to
Yeah.
be conspiracy theory, but like with these things, this is just once your eyes are open to this kind of stuff, like once my eyes were
Yes.
open to like the dark side of birth control or like for you, like the dark side of Botox that is not
Okay.
talked about. You just see it so clearly of like, why
Yeah.
is this not something that people are talking about or like that's being taken seriously? Like, why aren't we doing things differently? And a lot of times it comes back to like, there's no money in that. There's no money in like healing people naturally. So they don't need to see someone for, migraine pain or for the beauty industry is a whole nother thing too of like
Mm.
playing on insecurities and all of that. But
Yeah. And I just want to say that I've been working my butt off for the last 2 years to try to raise more awareness, but it really is a community effort because I do the podcast. We did make a documentary that's on YouTube that I can send the link to you called The Dark
yes,
Side
please
of
do.
Beauty. That was me and 3 other gals out here in California. And it was like, I found those women in like a day, like there are so many people suffering. I would encourage your listeners to just join one of these Facebook support groups. You'll start to see all the patterns in our symptoms. You can look at the product insert. The last 4 pages will tell you what the exact side effects are. Even a website like drugs.com can tell you what all the side effects are of Botox. I would encourage everyone to go on there and really think about, would I want to live with this side effect? Not for a day, not for a week, but for months, potentially years,
Yeah.
because that is what happens in botulism. And again, there's just not enough knowledge about botulism. And most doctors are like, 3 months, it'll wear off. No worries.
Yep.
And that's not always the case. So
Yeah.
we are working hard to raise awareness. And I'm so appreciative of people like you, Taylor, that have us on, like just to share our stories because there is power in our stories. Like people hear my story and they're like, I don't want to end up with that kind of hair. No, no, or like that kind of life where I couldn't work. I couldn't care for my kids. It led to so much stress. I ended up divorced. It's like none of that was worth it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
No. Yeah. Definitely send that and then send your podcast too, because I want to
Yeah.
listen to that. And I'm sure
Yeah.
other people like just to help spread awareness, like podcasts are a great way to do that. So would
Yes.
love both those resources and we'll put those in the show notes too. So let's kind of transition and talk about like, and I can speak about this too from a nutrition standpoint, but like natural ways to age gracefully. And I again want to emphasize like this is something where for me, I am just like, you know what? It's it's going to happen. Like I don't want to be one of those people that is ending up like that and dealing with those side effects, let alone like playing into the beauty standards of like you have to look a certain way to be worthy or beautiful or whatever. It's like that is bullshit and it's like for me I'm like I'm going to get wrinkles and it's gonna be okay. And I know
Gonna
I'm
be.
also saying this and I'm 34 and some people are gonna be like, okay, well, you're not like in your 50s or whatever, but it just really is not worth that. So a couple things that I want to like let listeners know of like alternatives because we're all about like, okay, if you're not doing Botox, like what can you do instead if that's something you want to do? Diet is really, really important. So even from a nutrition standpoint, like making sure you're getting enough antioxidants. So like omega 3s, which is mostly in like fish or flax seeds, walnuts, cod liver oil supplements, getting
Okay.
enough vitamin A. That's really important for skin cell turnover. I talk a lot about that with acne of like a lot of people who have success with Accutane, it's because they're low in vitamin A and we just need more of that vitamin A in our skin. I don't know if I said
I'm
this
a
or not
big fan of
already,
cod
but
liver oil for the record.
yes, love cod liver
And
oil.
and
Yeah,
animal fats. I'm a big animal fat eater, fish, liver, like
liver.
I eat all of the eggs, eat the yolks, eat the full
Yep,
fat dairy because you need fat soluble vitamins to glow. You really
yes.
do. My life changed. I was like a vegetarian for 10 years in college, and then I got pregnant with my first like 9 years ago or 10 years ago actually, and my body was like meat, protein. Like I just needed meat. And I've been eating meat ever since. And I'm telling you, like my skin looks better than it did in my 20s, like just in
Yep.
terms of the glow. I of course have more lines on it, but like I didn't have good skin when I was a vegetarian. Like it just never was very shiny. It was just kind of dull. And there's something to eating lots of healthy fats. Staying out of the sun, I usually like to put the sun on the rest of my body, but I will nowadays like cover up my chest, cover up my face, or put a little bit of natural zinc oxide sunscreen on because that really does help, wearing hats,
Hmm.
anything you can to like not let your face get as much sun.
Yes. Yeah,
And
for
a lot of
sure.
us did that in our past, so we're working against history.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
and also too with like the animal protein, so like the liver, the cod liver,
Mhm.
the egg yolks, those have retinol in them, which
Yep.
is the bioavailable form of vitamin A. So we always think of like, okay, vitamin A and like sweet potatoes or carrots or things like that, which yes, but those have beta carotene, which isn't that's good, but it's not the type of vitamin A that is really, really helpful for our skin. So
Right.
that's
Right.
a
You
really good
need
point, and fat in general.
I really am not a fan of vegetarianism or veganism. I'm just not. And I'll say that out loud because it's not, I just don't think it's giving people the nutrients they need. And, I got really low on iron and ferritin after the poisoning. The poisoning can deplete all kinds of minerals and vitamins in your body. So I'm super conscious about that now. But, you can't get good iron through plants. Like you need hemi-iron to
Hmm.
really be able to use it. And that's the kind you get through animal sources. I even take like beef spleen capsules, which sounds so weird, but it has the most bioavailable iron in it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing to help build my hair back up. But, back on skin, I just want to mention like I loved microneedling and I still do it all the time. I wish I had just stayed with microneedling because it's great for the skin, boosts your own collagen. It's really nice. And then I also do the frownies, like the little
I was
stickers.
going to
Have you
mention
tried
that.
those?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm just taking it easy. And like once you go through this illness, like you don't look at anything the same way. You don't take
Yep.
your health for granted. You don't look at every little wrinkle because guess what? No one else cares.
Yeah.
Like you are literally the only one who cares
Yeah.
when you look in the mirror and see yourself. Like no one's
It's
looking at that.
it's the
So,
same thing with acne, because I've
mhm.
struggled with acne really bad in the past and still have the occasional breakout and or with a lot of clients with acne, it's the same thing. It's like we are our own worst enemy when it comes to everything, but let alone like our skin and our appearance and all of that when like other people are like, "Oh, I didn't even like see that line or I didn't even see that pimple." Like and we're like
Yeah.
focusing on it being like, "Oh, that's what everyone's looking at?"
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I used to have really bad skin like as a teenager, and the only thing that worked for me was something called Mandelic acid. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
you've heard
Big
of that.
fan.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I
And
use
I was like,
that.
oh my
Love it.
God, my acne's gone. Like I couldn't even believe it because I had tried Accutane. Oh my God, when I was 19,
Mm,
I did Accutane, had all kinds of side effects, joint pain, IBS. I developed irritable bowel syndrome. As soon as I stopped the Accutane, magically everything went away. Like I was
yeah.
back to healthy again. And it's like, oh my God, these pharmaceutical drugs are causing so many issues for women.
Yep.
I mean,
Another good
so many.
example. Yep. Accutane
Yeah.
of like, well, when I was at my worst after I stopped birth control with my acne, my choices were either go back on birth control or we can try Accutane. And I did not like either of those options
Mm.
because I had been down the birth control route and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I know that wasn't actually fixing the problem. And then the Accutane, I was like, no, that is scary. Like I heard the horror stories with that. And so that's what inspired me to like pursue functional nutrition. I was very conventionally trained as a dietitian. So pursue functional nutrition, got, education on that. And then I was my own first client with it, with healing
Yeah.
my own skin and body and all that kind of stuff. And that's what inspired me to open my business. But it was because I was stuck in between a rock and a hard space of like, that's my dermatologist. That was the only options I was given after struggling with acne for 4 years, really, really bad after stopping birth control.
Yeah. That gut
Hmm.
microbiome will get you every
Yes.
time.
Yeah,
Well,
the frownies are great. Red
mm,
light therapy is also, I don't know
mhm.
if you do
Yeah.
that at
Yeah,
all,
I do
but
that.
yes, I
I
love
have
that.
a
I have
little
an Omelex.
wand,
Oh, you have a wand? Yeah.
but
Yeah, I have the mask because
yeah,
I watch my like trash TV when I'm like using that.
I love that. You gotta have someone take a picture of you doing a white mask. They're
Yeah.
so
And then I put sleep and stress. Like that's like two underrated things that are like so important for like the health of every single cell in our body, like especially our skin. So those are things too that like in addition to like the specific nutrients and, the microneedling, the frownies and the red light, it's like just working on stress and sleep and also drinking enough water. Minerals are really, really important. And eating enough. That's another thing too.
yeah.
If you're not eating enough, even if you're eating healthy, like you're not getting all those nutrients that your skin needs and your other detox organs need and all that kind of stuff to truly nourish your skin.
Well, and that's why, of course, we're gonna see so many issues with this GLP-1 culture. It's just like, oh my God, we're just starving people now. Like this is
Hmm.
so scary.
Yeah.
And and then they all go and get fillers and plastic surgery because their faces are all going weird. I just, I have a daughter and I'm like so worried about the future, but I feel like the more I'm doing everything I can to try to combat that by speaking out on social media and doing my books and all that. And I'm hopeful that like more and more and more people will continue to talk about this and we can kind of like turn the tidal wave a bit because
Yes.
Botox is becoming so ubiquitous. So yeah, so thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That's
so
a perfect
grateful.
segue. I was going to say, where can people find you? And, you talked about the podcast, you talk about the documentary on YouTube, which we'll
Mhm.
provide the links to. So you have some books too.
Yeah, I wrote, oh my gosh, I went on like a writing rampage because it was cathartic for me. I've always been a writer and it was like, this is a way that I can like channel my frustration out into the world. So I wrote 3 books that are on Amazon under Megan McHugh. So one's called Me Talks Pretty. That was like the story of what happened to me the first 5 months of my illness. My second book is called No Tox, and that's just kind of like the history of Botox and its side effects.
Mm.
And then the third book I wrote is for medical professionals. So it's like explaining the illness. It's called Iatrogenic Botulism 101. Explaining the illness. I use all, research articles. This is not my opinion. Everything has a reference. I'm not making any of this up. I just want doctors and nurses to be more educated so that they could potentially save a life, like at the ER, or, if God forbid one of their patients develops these side effects, like know what to do, know how to get them help.
Yeah.
So that was really my goal. And I do have an upcoming book that'll be out on Amazon, and that's called Botox Injury Stories. I'm hoping to have it out in the next couple weeks. And it's actually a collection of 20 people that I had on the podcast wrote out their stories. So it's like a short story collection of like what happened to us. And it really I'm so in love with this book because it's like, it's real, raw, personal stories. Like you connect with the people in it and you literally see the exact same symptoms, like with everyone's story. It's crazy. Like, you can't read this book as a medical professional or as a layperson and deny this
Mm.
illness after you're done
Hmm.
reading it. Like it needs to be in every library.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
It's
Okay,
great.
cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe you can
Oh, and
link
my
those.
website, I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Your
website. People
website.
can just go to botoxtruths.com, and that's my Instagram handle as well, Botox
Okay.
Truths.
Perfect. I'm sure you have like links to your books and stuff on there too. Like
Mhm.
people can
Yeah.
just go to the website
All,
and
all of
okay,
my
perfect.
books, all of my books are free PDFs on my website. So if you don't want to buy my
Okay.
books, I don't care. I'm not in this for money. Like just go download the PDFs on my website.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for being on and yeah, just such an unfortunate experience, but I feel the same about my healing journey too. It's like such an unfortunate experience we had to go through and the fact that no one could help us, but now we're using that to help other people and
yeah,
connect with other people who are going through the exact same thing and like make it more well known is so, so important. So I appreciate you taking the time to
absolutely.
be on today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Taylor.
You're so welcome. So let's end with our fun question that I ask all my guests before we wrap up. How are you nourishing yourself lately? This can be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever you are open to sharing.
Well, it's interesting you asked that because this month I actually decided to take a break from social media. And
I saw
one
that.
of the, yeah, and I lived through hell for the first year and then I healed. But then I stayed in the space because I wanted to raise awareness. And sometimes, that's not always healthy for my continued healing because I'm literally contacted every single week by people around the world who are experiencing these effects. I want people to know that. I get contacted. My platform's not even that big. I don't know how these people find me. And I get contacted every single week. I had a lady call me yesterday and she lives in my exact same county. And she was botulism symptoms within hours of her injections. And for me, it's hard to relive. Like it is hard to talk to people about their stories, to relive those early days every time I get contacted, So I really wanted to take a break from social media. And for me, that has been a good experience. Like I want to get back to joy in my life. Like I did not have the emotion joy in my life for 2 years. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's actually really hard to talk about and I'm not going to cry, but so I'm just like trying to re-experience joy and get out of this dark world while still like being in it and being committed to advocacy, but not having to be in the day-to-day like coaching people through botulism
Yeah.
because it's such a scary illness and people don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm literally just like, I'm going out with my girlfriends again and like, with my kids and all these things. And I'm just trying to like be like, oh my God, this is life. Like I'm living an embodied life again. And I'm not just like stuck in a fight or flight state.
Yeah.
So no
Yeah.
social media. It's a good one for
Yeah.
everyone to do every now and then.
Yes, you aren't the only person who has shared that as the way that they are nourishing themselves. And that makes total sense with everything that you've been through. And I've had to do that too. And,
Yeah.
it feels hard too, because you're like, well, I don't want to stop talking about this message that's so important. But at the same time, like I need to take a step back and for your own mental health, just for a period of time. Like, so that's awesome that you are reaping the benefits of that already. I did see that on, I think like right after I contacted you. So I was like, okay, I'm glad I got her before she went on her hiatus.
You're like, we got 2 weeks now. Yes, no, I'm glad you contacted me too. But I love doing this kind of stuff too. So I'm going to keep doing my podcast, going to keep going on other people's podcasts. But for me, it's like the day-to-day, like bombardment of messages and people that are really ill is hard because it brings you back into that trauma.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I really have been focusing on getting out of that and re-emerging back into my real life.
Yep. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your story. And for those of you listening, go look at Megan's Instagram, her podcast, all the resources, the books. I'm going to do that too. So I'm sure there's like so much of, just valuable information. And this was just a small snippet, a small, almost 15 minutes of everything that you've gone through. So thank you again for being on. And if this show resonated with you, or if you know someone who's going through this, share it with them, like share the resources Megan has created, the communities that she's pioneering. It will be so helpful for someone. And if anything, hopefully it was helpful for you to just make an informed decision on your health. So, all right. Until next time, everybody, stay nourished.